Thanks, Gordon. And now, coming to us live from Santa Cruz, California, Dave Evans. Hey, Dave. Thanks for joining us tonight as we celebrate our 7th cohort here at Impact Central.
It's great to be with you again, Gordon. I wish I was in London. I like it better when we do it that way, but, this isn't bad.
Well, that's right, because, you've been such a great supporter of our program. You were one of our original faculty members, right? You joined us in person on the first cohort back in 2018.
That's right.
And for those people in our audience that don't know your background, I'm going to highlight 3 titles. The first one is entrepreneur, and you were one of the early members at Apple and also a co-founder at Electronic Arts. Second title is author of the #1 New York Times best-selling book, Designing Your Life, and more recently, Designing Your Work Life. And the third title is educator, because you are the co-director of the Life Design Lab at Stanford University. So thanks again for joining us tonight, Dave.
Thanks, Gordon. Yeah, it's all true.
One of the themes that is resonating right now is finding meaning in your work. And you've been helping people design better lives for a while now. Is that a new topic?
Well, it's not a new topic for us. We've been talking about it since day one. And before I taught at Stanford, starting 15 years ago, I taught at Cal and similar things 8 years before that. So I've been talking about this formally for over 20 years. But as a matter of fact, that question's getting a huge renewal worldwide, particularly around a thing called the Big Quit, which is a little bigger in North America than it is in Europe right now, but it's coming your way. And I was just standing in New York in a room full of chief human resource officers and chief learning and development officers talking about exactly that. I want to jump briefly into that conversation to tee up your point, then come back into the little conversations. We can have the slides up, please. There we go. Okay. So is life design, what we do, the answer to the Big Quit? Well, first of all, the graph you're seeing here is the Gallup data, which has been gathered both nationally in North America and internationally for over 22 years. And here's the bottom line. Engagement sucks. Okay. It's 64% in the US, 85% globally, people disengaged at work. That's been going on for over 20 years. It's actually a little better than it used to be, but it's gone from hellacious to merely sucks. And so what's going on here is now this Big Quit is happening, and 16 million people have quit, in North America in the last 4 months, and it hasn't stopped yet. Everybody's freaking out. Like, oh my God, what happened? Well, what happened is same old, same old. There's no new issue. There's a new intolerance for the old issue. We've been frustrated at work for a very, very long time. So what's going on is if you ask Gallup, what's going on, here's their description. This global engagement pattern gives evidence how performance is managed, specifically how people are developed, and it's misfiring. Wow, there's a deep insight. People mostly get annual reviews to provide feedback and so on. The new workforce, by the way, this is true of the old workforce too. We're just newly recognizing it. The new workforce is looking for things like purpose, opportunities to develop ongoing conversations with a coach, not just a boss. I want a manager who leverages my strengths. And these people see work and life as interconnected. They want their job to be part of their identity. So work and life are interconnected. Work matters to me. I want a purpose. This is the deep insight from the very expensive consultants who think hard about the special data they just gathered. We've known this forever, people. This is old news.
Right.
So what we're saying is, look, when you ask Gallup, by the way, what are you supposed to do? They say, well, you have to learn how to have the 5 coaching conversations. And here are the 5 topics that the 5 coaching conversations cover. Not one of which addresses the issue of work and life integration. Not one of which addresses the question of purpose. Great. Thanks for the diagnostic and no help. So what's really going on here is where's the life part? Mm-hmm. So the reframe we're saying is, look, it's not about the job. Mm-hmm. I don't want a great job, is what millions and millions of people are saying. And we've been hearing this for decades. I want a great life with a good job in it.
Right.
So where do you start? Well, okay, the first is, that's a whole conversation. It's a 9-hour seminar. But the number one idea is to connect the dots. And the 3 dots you got to connect are, who are you? What do you believe? And what are you doing? If you want to experience meaning making, you have to find a way to interconnect these dots, what we call coherency. I'm living coherently when these things make sense to me and my lived experience complements them. So we actually have an exercise called the compass exercise to help you figure that stuff out. And I'll stop right there. We can kill the slide. But short answer to your question is this new? No, this is not new. It's been going around for a long time, but thankfully people are finally starting to wake up to it.
I mean, I find that so interesting because, at especially at Showcase night, where I hear a lot of people that watch Showcase, the audience members, they come to me and they say, I loved listening to those entrepreneurs. They were so passionate. They had so much dedication. But what I oftentimes sense is kind of actually their comment is really kind of saying, well, how can I get that type of meaning into my own work? Do I got to quit and join Impact Central? It's like, yeah, but there has to be a better way, right? And I know, Dave, you have some ways that you can maybe share with us of how people can maybe do the compass exercise.
Yeah, but it's true that when you are in an entrepreneurship and starting everything from scratch, it feels like you're part of framing the raison d'etre, and you can connect your life to what we're doing. I mean, one of the reasons I joined Electronic Arts 40 something years ago was to be the second guy. I was employee number 2, and one of my jobs was to help co-author the company manifesto before we even wrote the company business plan. I mean, that felt meaningful. Now, 99.997% of us don't get to do that, but you don't have to go to a startup to get that work done. So if you're going to be an Impact Central investor and stay in your hedge fund, then what you can do is you can do this compass exercise. We can actually help you with some tools to articulate to yourself what I believe, what matters to me, how my work is integrating or not. And most employers aren't going to do that for you. You have to do it for yourself. Now, where meaning comes from is from your extraction of the narrative. So what you do is you write that stuff up, you think it through, and actually you have left some tools that Gordon can make available to you. And then you actually have a conversation with yourself, preferably with a coworker, and start working it through. And if there are gaps, you can start filling that in by rewriting your narrative. One of the most powerful things you can do is not necessarily get a new job, but you can rewrite your own narrative, because the game changes all the time, and you got to rehire yourself into a new mindset. That's thing one. And then thing two, there are a lot of ways you can change the job you currently have. The best person to get a new job from is you.
Mm-hmm. And so, when you go about doing that, do you start first with kind of the work life, or do you focus first on like the personal life? How do you decide between those two?
Well, the exercise includes writing 2 either essays or filling out 2 forms. One we call the life view, one we call the work view. Life view is like a worldview. It's your highest held values about the biggest questions you think matter in the world. It's not just personal life. It's just what's the important truth about life in general according to you. And then we zoom it down into the workspace specifically. What are your what is work? What's it for? Is it for service to humanity? Is it for money? Is it for fun? What are we doing this for? Then you write that stuff up. You can start on either one. Interestingly, when we ask people which one was harder for you to write, it's all over the place.
Okay.
Very, very seldom do people have these already done. An odd thing about the modern world, where capitalism is the largest country in the world and soccer is the second largest country, that we talk about work all the time. And then you say, well, what do you believe about work? And people go, oh, I'm just spending 80 hours a week at it. I don't think about it. I just do it. So we're giving people a chance to actually think through what they probably already know, but haven't had a chance to articulate. And it can be very powerful.
And on that, I mean, is this kind of a, you do this once and you're set, or have you found in particular with like changes because of the pandemic and other things that people's world might be rocked and you got to do it again?
I do think, again, we just re-released our last book. So Designing Your Work Life is now Designing Your New Work Life, an all new paperback from Vintage. It's going to be in the UK very soon. With 4 new chapters about disruption.
Here.
There it is. Good job, Gordon. Pitch the book. 4 new chapters on disruption design. We define a disruption as some change, personal, regional, or global, that is so big you say to yourself, man, things are never going to be the same again. So if your world has changed, right, one way or another, then you're probably going to be in a case where some of those life view and work view things might need an update. You don't do them every week, but we're growing people. If you're going to grow, you're going to change. You're not going to throw out everything you think and start all over again every day, but you want to keep fresh. I mean, the smart people are on version 4 or 5 of their life view and work view.
Okay. So you find like kind of maybe you keep these and then you can see a bit of an evolution of your development over time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Dave, I guess, I think the first book you wrote was Designing Your Life, and now it's your work life. Do you feel that, we have a lot of entrepreneurs on the program. How do you kind of fit it if you're shifting in your career and stuff like that? Is that, or as an entrepreneur?
Right. Well, it's, in this conversation specifically about designing work,
Mm.
There's two conversations. One is to the worker, talking to you about managing your experience of your own work and how you integrate with your colleagues and so on. And then there's talking to the leader, whether it's just a small team leader or a founder of a big company or a CEO of a huge public entity. Well, any leader, you're creating other people's work. So in that latter case, if I'm taking to the entrepreneurs in Impact Central right now, you're forming your company. You're probably all really small. You're in what I call the osmotic organizational form where everybody knows everything all the time. And it feels like everybody gets to vote on everything all the time. That's not really true, but since they know everything, it feels like they got to vote. And as you grow, you want to make sure you're building a corporate culture and you're building corporate structures that enable and empower people to connect the dots between what they're doing and what's meaningful to them and that sort of thing. You can facilitate that conversation explicitly. There's a bunch of tools in the book to do that, and they're all downloadable. I'm not going to sell them now, but if you're an organizational leader, you have to decide whether or not you're willing to help your employees and team members integrate their entire lives into what work means to them, or you're just going to treat them as a role. The idea we call this the human in the room. I'm not really Dave Evans. I'm the co-founder of the Stanford Life Design Lab, an author of the New York Times bestseller, currently played by Dave Evans. I'm literally two-dimensional person on this screen. I'm playing my role, little guy in a box. But in the company, when you're working together and putting in all that effort, is it really Dave who's here or just Dave, the systems analyst? Is it really Gordon who's here or just, Gordon, the product manager? So you want to start thinking about ways to help people get not that they do cooking at the office or they do watercolors at the office, but they can find ways to connect those dots.
Right. And question on that, as you were highlighting, when you're really small organization, everybody's talking, everybody's
Right.
kind of knows what's going on. It starts to grow. How do you kind of think about it? Because you've obviously been an entrepreneur in growing organizations.
Yeah.
At what point does it kind of become your responsibility to help people do these things? Like, do you find that because they may start feeling disenfranchised, like at how many employees or what do you kind of know that you have to step in a bit more on the cultural side as a founder?
Yeah, when you're going through those growth points, there really are inflection moments. So like going through puberty, like a year later, it's all different.
Right.
And so I'm working with a very successful NGO right now to absolutely be a great Impact Central candidate. And they've grown, and they're now about 30 odd people. They just had a bunch of money dropped on them. Their growth curve is going to go like this. They're going to go from 2 to 9 sites in the next 4 years. Like, whoa. And I literally helped co-lead the offsite. That was the beginning of the growth launch. Brought in a new COO, some new C-suite people are coming in who really know what they're doing running large organizations. And about half the organization's been there less than a year, and half the organization's been there anywhere from 7 to 2 years. When they were tiny.
Right.
And the legacy people they're kind of getting a neck ache, like, whoa, what's happening here? The new people are like, hey, this is fun. This is great. So for the people who need to shift through that thing, before I could integrate everything I'm doing, because I just knew everything. And so I felt totally loved and I felt totally integrated and totally involved because I knew everything. And now I don't know everything. So I have the experience of being left out. And so what you have to do is you actually have to do a much better job communicating at that point. Like, who are we? Where are we going? Why are we doing this? What does it mean to you? Here's the part you play. Here's the chunk of the division you're in or the unit that you're in. Your team works on this, and that team who you only hear about once a month, not daily. You're not CC'd on every single email written by every single person every single day anymore. So, you hear this stuff sporadic. Well, what are they doing? They're doing the right thing, just like you. And we're all going to meet together at the carousel at the end of the day. And so you really have to walk people through that shift. And I actually encourage people to literally, do a re-enlist and reframe. So literally that job you used to have is the same title and you're the same person, but it's literally a new company. It's a new world. And let's rewrite your job description as you understand it. Let's rewrite your enlistment rationale. Why am I here? And what defines a good day? We have an exercise called the Good Work Journal, where you track daily, not just, what you're enjoying, but, when did I help somebody? When did I learn something? What did I initiate? Ways of catching yourself in the act of feeling like you're making a difference. And that can really help you reorient yourself in a healthy way as things grow. And when they grow, they're going to change. That's the good news.
Dave, I have just one more favor I want to ask you. Could you please bring in our 5th venture tonight?
Sure. Up next is Catherine Pratt talking about pushing envelopes, a whole new take on that thing. Remember paper? It's not all email, boys and girls. It's actually paper still. And we, as makers at the Stanford Life Design Lab, know that becoming a maker can change your life. And Catherine's going to tell you not only how you can change your life by pushing envelopes, you can change somebody else's. So listen up.